Oh, nice. Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Talk. It's the Sarah Invasion episode today, and we also have Timothy back with us. So this morning we're going to talk about some random topics like always, and then share. We have one live campaign and then one upcoming campaign to talk about. So first thing we'll do is let everyone introduce themselves. So Sarah, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Hi.
Wait, I guess
I'm one of the Sarahs.
Yeah. Sarah number one. Tell us all about yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Landauer. I'm co-creator and head writer at Wasteland Comics. We're working on a comic book series called Glitch, which is a post-apocalyptic solar punk adventure suitable for middle grade readers and up. I like doing yoga. I'm a crazy cat lady. I play lots of D&D and Monster of the Week. And if you can't tell by my dice earrings, so
Cool.
that's the gist of me.
Awesome.
I also have Zephyr with me.
Zephyr,
our little mascot.
he always comes because Sarah and I have been at the same cons lots of times because we're both SoCal based. So Zephyr always makes a visit to my table and always gets a shot at Finish Line Comics table. So yes. I always love seeing Zephyr at different cons because she brings him around to all the tables, all the people around us, and everyone gets their shot with Zephyr. So now he's joining us on the pod. So good stuff. All right, Timothy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Timothy Fling. I'm a writer and musician from York, Pennsylvania. And I guess, as Ed knows, within the last year or so, we've been doing a significant amount of podcasting, right? The other unlikely thing that has happened, as I'm fond of pointing out, sometimes when you're trying to do one thing creatively, you end up doing something else accidentally. So the new thing, of course, is the Watch the Skies UFO podcast. It's our most popular podcast. That's the first Friday of every night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And that, of course, that grew out of the Creative Cranium show, which is pretty generally every Friday at 10 p.m. on the Indie Comics Network. Thank you, Nita, if you're listening. She's our producer. And of course, you're all invited. Ed, I know you've done it before. If you'd like to come on and talk about your latest project, or if you happen to want to talk about UFOs or ghosts, which is the other new one, whether you're pro or con, we always need guests. And I think it's more interesting if one person believes it and one doesn't. I'm just the moderator. I ask the questions, similar to what Ed is going to do here in a few minutes. I guess I would be negligent if I didn't mention I'm a Substacker too. So if you're so inclined to read my series, please come over to, they have what they call a handle now. I'm at Timothy Fling. It's my name. And looking for Substackers. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Oh, great to have you back. Appreciate when you come on here.
Thank you.
And Sarah White, I can tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I've been in comics in some capacity for like 10 years. I've worked with a bunch of studios and thinking about starting up my own thing now. I've written a couple of books and I've co-written a couple of books. Right now we are trying to get I forgot the name of it. Granica. Granica is going to get fulfilled here hopefully soon. And that one's a hard sci-fi adventure. And then I am also a crazy cat lady. I make stuff. I make stuff out of whatever I find. Like I like to say that I build stuff out of trash all the time, and unfortunately never take pictures of the things that I build. But I do a lot of sewing. I do a lot of painting. I wouldn't ever call myself like especially good at it, but I like to do it, so that's why I do it. And I also have a live stream over on Agents of Geekdom, and that one's called Critical Affection, where we affectionately criticize pop culture that we love. And I did take a sabbatical for personal reasons, but we're coming back in the next couple of weeks here. So yeah, if anybody sounds like that's fun. I think we're gonna do Agatha All Along next, and come so you can come talk about it. And like, if you guys want to come be guests on the show, you should just send me a message because I would love to have you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. So if people don't know, I'm Ed Davis. I am the creator of Finish Line Comics, the 2 series behind me, Corruptor and Immortal Era. I'm actually actively launching 3 new series next year and losing my mind, I think. And then also getting into the podcasting thing, like Timothy was saying. I have a new podcast coming out this Wednesday. It's called First Impressions, where I talk with me and Dash Hooper, who has been on the show before. We're going to examine an album we've never heard before, play it one time and one time only, and then talk about our first impressions about it. So we both picked 10 albums, and you can tell when you see the albums who picked what, because I kind of live in that indie and more obscure world, and he's giving the more mainstream stuff that I would never have listened to if he didn't suggest it. So I kind of like it, like forcing me out of my comfort zone and making me listen to something that I would have probably avoided. So I was like, all right, good. Make me actually expand my horizon. So that's going to be coming on this Wednesday it's going to be 9 Eastern. So yeah, definitely tune in for that. It should be a lot of fun. And we're also going to be editing those episodes to put on Spotify so we can actually add the music from the bands onto there. So yeah, join us for that. And now let's talk about our topics for today. So first topic, this is something I was just talking with my wife. We were out on a date and I was just like, what are some things that, you wish you could see again? These restaurants, these buildings, these malls, things like that. A place that you had in your past that's now gone that you would love to be able to just go and experience one more time. So if you could bring something back from the past, what would you want to bring back so you could experience it again? So Sarah, go ahead and tell us.
I'm assuming me, Sarah.
Yeah, talk, Sarah. We'll just go in the order.
The whole time, isn't
So
it?
I feel like I'm in class, right? I had a year where I was teaching 5th grade and I had 6 Alejandros, and I'm like, 2 of them had the same last
initial.
2 of them had the same last initial. So I'm like, all right, we got to get into middle names now. And I'm just like, Alejandro over there, please, and answer the question. So Sarah on the top, tell us, what would you like to bring back from the past?
Okay, mine's not. I guess it's technically a place, but like I never personally went there.
Mhm.
It's like this bakery that made these. They're called Panque de Jamaica. That was in Miami. Every time my abuelo would travel to Miami to like see family and stuff, he'd always come back with a whole box of these like muffins that were the best freaking muffins I have ever had in my life. They went out of business or moved or something, and they just don't exist anymore. And when I saw this question, I immediately got sad because I was reminded that I don't have these freaking muffins. They were the best. I wish everyone could try them.
Yeah.
So
See,
good.
now I want one, and that's kind of where the question. That's what it came from. It started with food. My wife and I were like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could just eat this one thing again." So yeah, it doesn't have to be a place. I said place or thing. So yeah, the muffins could be that as well. So yeah, just something you hit it and it just automatically triggers that nostalgia in your head, and that like, oh, just one more bite of that. So yeah, that's a great one. So Timothy, what are you going to bring back?
I thought about this, and I've got one that I'd like to bring up. I'm kind of a gamer, and my son is a gamer also. And by the way, I was thrilled to hear that there's another D&D person in the house. But I'll save that, Sarah, so I don't take it away from you. But I'm right there with you. Where I was going to head with mine was to the arcade. I'm a little bit younger, probably, than most of the viewers, but they used to have a thing called an arcade. And what it was a place you would go to, and they would have video games. And you would put quarters into a machine, and you could play the game for as long as you had quarters. And you would like meet all your friends there. And it was also kind of a place where you would hang out and you would talk about the latest games that were coming, and you would kind of enthuse about them. And I guess it was such a new form of media that we hadn't learned to create a framework of argument around the games. And, one of the things about the online world, for better or for worse, it's made it easier to communicate. And I love that part. But particularly with the release of new games, it seems to, in many cases, to be providing a framework for argument rather than enjoyment. And I guess what I mean by that is even if a game's kind of bad, I still like it, and, the metaphor, of course, is many times people would say something like pizza or even sex. If you're a little bit more adventurous, there isn't really a bad version of it. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're having pizza, you're probably still in a pretty good mood. But I mean, I can remember having some of the best times in my life hanging around the arcade with a group of people, and sometimes not even playing. It was like a hangout. And I guess if that was the first choice, my second one would be, if I can get two, I'm a big fan of physical media. And they used to, the other thing, again, this is probably some people might not remember, but they used to have a thing called a video store. And you would go there and they would have, it was a VHS tape, it was called. And they would all be on a wall and you could look through and pick out the movie you wanted to watch. And what would happen is they would go in there and they would sort of compete to get the movies because they were going to run out on a weekend, you see. And what you would do is you'd stand by the door and wait for people to return the movies so you would get a chance to see the latest blockbuster. Now, when I say the latest, many of these movies were still 2 years old or 3 years old, but it's very different than today when a new movie, 6 weeks later it comes out. And of course, I like to see movies. I'm not necessarily, I know it sounds like I'm shouting at the sky, old man shouting at the sky, but I think that it developed a level of enthusiasm and we looked forward to it a little bit. And I'm not sure, I'm not an actor or a director or anything, don't get me wrong, but I've got to imagine that's a little bit disheartening to work on something that's maybe 2, 3, 4 years, and then it's in the theater for 2 weeks and then bam, it's on streaming. And in most cases, controversial statement, Ed, you like hot takes, right?
Go for it.
Streaming is in every way the inferior experience. If you're a DVD collector, you've got the bonus scenes and the deleted things and interviews with directors, which I love all that nerd stuff. If you're a music guy, remember albums used to come with what they called a liner note, and you could read the lyrics and it would have little pictures of the musicians and things. There was always little bonuses with it. And streaming is always the same thing. You hit the button and you watch the latest movie, and occasionally it's a little blurry if my son is using up all the bandwidth. It's just not the better experience. So my two picks for today would be the arcade and the video store.
Nice. Yeah, the video store was one of mine as well, and that just brings me to the nostalgic feel, because I remember when I was in middle school and into high school, me and a group of friends would play basketball until we couldn't stand up anymore. And then after our game of basketball, we would head to the video store, whether it be Blockbuster, Hollywood Video.
I remember both of those.
We would look to find the exact right horror movie. And it was me and one other friend. And our other friends would get so pissed off. They're like, this movie's going to suck anyway. And now you're wasting our time, looking around and trying to find the exact right cover. And this is pre-internet. So, of course, you couldn't just look it up. Like, let me go on Rotten Tomatoes and see what its score is. Like, no, You're reading... Like you read for the little blurbs on the top, like the most disturbing movie I've ever seen, or the goriest movie that exists, and
even the
like,
bad
that's
horror
what I
movies.
need.
Even the bad horror movies were still kind of good, right? Because it was just
we
by
were
a quick show of
entertained.
hands. Raise your hand if you actually like bad horror movies. I do.
Oh, that's my jam right there.
I'm a fraidy cat, so I have a complicated relationship with horror movies.
Okay, I respect that.
I love all bad movies. I annoy the hell out of people with my constant watching bad movies. Just any bad movie, not even horror.
Oh,
totally
totally great.
It's
so entertaining.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah, and
I'm the jerk that's sitting next to you talking about how unrealistic that is. Just picking it apart. Like
I kind of like that too.
Love doing it.
Oh yeah.
That's why I have
the
that
line
live stream where
to-
we pick stuff apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a line where it's like, if it's bad but fun, it's great. If it's bad and I feel like I wasted my life watching this, then it's like, okay, that's a bad movie.
Yeah, and my rule, my big rule is that if I'm seeing the movie for the first time, or if somebody who's watching it with me is seeing it for the first time, I try my damnedest to say nothing until the second viewing. That's my rule, and I don't always follow it. Sometimes I just can't help myself, but I try.
Oh, it's hard to mute yourselves. Everyone turns into Mystery Science 3000 when you're watching. Oh, we have a lot of comments. Let me check those out. So yeah, Sarah, go ahead. Sarah White, tell us, what would you bring back?
Okay, so this is like super personal. In Southwest Wisconsin, there used to be this campground called Minch's Pond. And I just remember having the best summers there. And we would go, and my dad hated it because like tents in the 80s had like 1,000 of those really big metal hollow poles, and it was really difficult to put up. And then you had to like take it down, take it home, and then put it back up and let it sit in the sun so that it would be totally dry before you packed it up. So he didn't like doing that, but we loved it. And I think about, we caught turtles down there, and we went fishing, and we went swimming, and it had this weird shape. It was almost like a donut of a pond, and it had this like bridge thing across it where you could climb up onto it and jump off. And I guess that just makes the nostalgic remember when I used to actually like camping thing.
That sounds great. It sounds great.
And, and it was like a private-ish place where you could rent. You were the only, like, I have a big extended family, and so you could rent it, the whole campground, because it was a small place, and it would just be us camping there that whole weekend or whatever. And I think about how, well, it was simpler then, wasn't it, when you're a kid, and you just think about, the highlight of my summer is when we get to go to the pond and play and swim, and just, like I said, it was a donut shape, so you could just get into a tube or something and float around all day long if you wanted to. And the only downside of that place was there was this tree, and I don't even know what kind of tree it is. I never thought to try and figure it out, but it shed thorny, spiky thingies, and of course, farm kids running around all summer long, we didn't have no shoes on. And so, but these were the, as hard as our feet would get from running around on gravel all summer, that tree could get through those hard soles. So
it'll always find a way.
Yeah, there was always one person that ended up getting a spike through the foot, and one of my cousins actually had to go to the ER once because it went directly through her foot. And
Damn.
We talk about that and laugh, and she's still like, she'll, even if it's Christmas dinner and we're all gathered together, if somebody's like, remember that time, Laura? And she will pull off her boot and her sock and be like, yeah, see? And just show us the hole, and like there's a little dent in the bottom of her heel.
So it's not, she has the permanent scar for that one.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, we all got stabbed with those spikes things.
Oh, man.
It just
those are painful. I know kind of what you're talking about, and you don't want to step on those with bare feet, because when I go on trail runs, I'll bring little spikes like that into the house, and then all of a sudden I'll hear a scream of pain as someone's walking up the stairs, like, it's one of your damn spikes again. Like, oh shit, whoops. I'm causing people pain with spikes. Probably not the same intensity, because these ones aren't big enough to send you to the ER, but still quite a bit of pain.
I would love to know what kind of tree that was, and like when you told me what the questions were, I was thinking about that. I was like, God, I need to find that tree someday, because it's definitely not a native tree for here. Like, we don't have, like, of course, this is my kid brain remembering, but I was like, they were like this big, they were like 5 inches long. I was like, I don't know, because when you're a kid, everything seems bigger, but like, if it was big enough to send somebody to the emergency room, surely it was at least 2 or 3 inches long, right?
I mean, it can't be the teeny little ones like mine, because those ones, like they'll cause you a significant amount of pain, but you're not going to the emergency room for them. So, but that's also the thing, to see these things through adult eyes, because all we see them through is our childhood nostalgia. And I remember I had an arcade that I would walk to by my house as well. So all those things. So for me, I'm bringing back one particular strip mall, because when I was a kid, it was, kind of the stay out of the house until the lights are, till the street lights come on. We don't want to see your face. So I would always get into stuff. I told my wife I was in constant state of doing some shenanigans, but there was a little strip mall that I could walk to, probably about a mile from the house. And in this strip mall, there was a baseball card shop, a music store, and a toy store.
Oh, nice.
For my needs, that's everything I needed all in one spot. So I would go to the music store, grab an album, go to the toy store, get, whatever action figure I was trying to get, and then, close it off with whatever money was left to go buy a couple packs of cards and go back on your way home. And, all of that you could pull off for, you have a $20 bill, you're going to get all of those things. So I would do all the I mowed every neighbor's lawn and did all the little odds and ends jobs so I could go down there and make sure I could, buy all those things. And, talking about physical media, I still have a huge vinyl record collection for the podcast that we're going to be doing. I'm buying every single one of the albums that we're doing on vinyl so I can experience it the right way, because I wanted, because our first album we're doing is the new one by The Cure, and that thing was unavailable everywhere. It was sold out, couldn't find it. So I had to do Spotify, and I still listen to it in my living room, not Spotify, just sitting somewhere else. So I listened in my living room, and it still just didn't feel right. The experience didn't feel like it was supposed to. So I bought every album, listened to it on vinyl. I have a huge vinyl collection, huge comic book, huge CD, DVD. And the problem is, and there's arcade for that one. Sorry, I didn't see that one in there. And
that's okay.
The problem is storage. It becomes, where the heck are you going to store all the physical media you collect? Doesn't stop me from buying it, but it becomes a dilemma. It's like, okay, you have all of these albums, where are they going? So yeah,
I didn't know if you like images, but I figured.
Oh yeah. I love them, and I'm never fast enough. Like, we're talking, and I'm not fast enough to
This is what you and I were talking about. That's why it is difficult, and I think you do a terrific job. So, I just didn't know if that was useful.
Oh no, I love seeing the images. I don't have the greatest sight, so if I'm going to try to find images, I'm going to have to squint, and it's not a good look on a live.
Let me give you a quick trivia tip here. And first of all, let me say to Sarah that I'm so happy that somebody mentioned an outside activity. Sarah too, in this case, mentioned that, and because speaking for myself, I'm not stereotyping or anything, but I was always a little bit of a nerd culture. I wasn't necessarily a go outside kind of kid, and I was not very good at sports and this kind of thing. So a lot of my enjoyment came from things which maybe weren't considered too cool in the day, right? Mm-hmm. And the example I'd like to give was I was also a pinball guy. And this would have been, I hesitate to disclose how old I am in this group, but I will say that it was probably close to 1979. And we used to hang out at this place, Capital Pizza, and all the parents would say, don't go there. That's hoodlums, juvenile delinquents, hanging out front, smoking weed. You get the idea, right? So if you're 13, 14 years old, the coolest place in town, right? So I was always there, always playing pinball. And I can remember the day they rolled in that machine, and we all turned around and went, Space Invaders? What's that? And what it was the advance of this new thing, video games. And within 2 months, the place was, because after that, I still remember it. It was Donkey Kong was the second one, if you guys remember that one. And then there was Pac-Man, which I think everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there was Mrs. Pac-Man. And after that was Missile Command. And I mean, the line sometimes was going out the door. It's a little bit hard to believe now, but video games used to be that hot when they came out. You would line up for your chance to put your quarters in.
Yeah.
So that's a great memory for me. Now, mine, unfortunately, is probably not as healthy as Sarah two's example.
Yeah.
Because at least she's getting sunlight and exercise,
No spikes in the feet, though.
Yeah, spikes in the feet was a downside.
Yeah. And I kind of by default had to find the outdoor activities to do, because literally the rule was just don't come in the house. And then I was never very athletic. I was the guy who would fall over my face when I was playing sports. Like, I'm good at one thing, and that's just running in a straight line. So I do marathons and all that stuff, but you try to make me run and do some cuts or something in football, I'm going to end up falling and looking embarrassed. But it's one of those things where we had to be outside, so it brought a lot of imagination. And it's like, yeah, it was 100 degrees out. It was miserable because we were running around in the desert in my case. But it also bred imagination, where me and my friends were constantly thinking and coming up with new things, making our own games, our own, you're writing new movies every time you're playing with your Star Wars toys. And it was funny because when my mom sold the house that we grew up in, she was digging out in the backyard and came in like, I found all these Star Wars toys buried out back. I'm like, they probably died. So it's funny that she just found all these there. I'm like, yeah, that's what we did. We would just play out back and, Han just got killed, bury him, it's over. And you know, sometimes like, where the heck did we bury Han? Damn it, we lost him. So
Whoops.
like,
Or
Mom,
set
I
him
need,
on fire. That
he's
was the
dead.
thing too.
Yeah, I grew up
All
on a
right.
farm, so I was outside all the time, whether
Okay.
or not I wanted to be. And now I've like went the extreme opposite direction, and I like never go outside.
Yes. So all the comments are coming up as Facebook users. So that stinks, unfortunately, but this one I know is my uncle, because Jack White, he was saying, has a new album out, played the Mayan Theater. And yeah, I actually just saw Jack White in the Mayan Theater again 2 weeks ago. And yeah, it's a great album. I actually bought it when I was at the show. That's, if you do go to concerts like I do all the time, buy the albums at the show, because then the money goes directly to the band, not to, you know, not to Amazon or something else that doesn't need any more of your money. So always try to buy the physical media at the show from the band, because that goes to them, not to someone else. Even if it's a little bit more, you're benefiting those people, and that's what you want to do. So now our next topic. That was great conversation. I appreciate everybody's answers on this one and how well you thought out these questions. So second one is, imagining you're going into a comic shop and you see a 10-year-old boy or girl going into this shop. What's the comic book that you're going to hand them that's going to hook them and make them comic readers for life? And of course, not your own. You can't hand them like, all right, I'm giving them Immortal Era because that'll do it. Like, nope. Ego aside, what is the book that you're going to give to that 10-year-old who's walking in, and you know that this is going to make them a reader for life and the comic book enthusiast forever? So Sarah L., what's your choice on this one?
Okay, so this one was a little difficult because I actually didn't like grow up as a kid. I wasn't reading comic books. I actually came into comic books pretty late through indie comics. But I did read a lot of like manga. So I would recommend Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, just because like Hayao Miyazaki is such a big inspiration for me, like animation wise. And I was just like, the comic is like the movie but better. So it's just like the imagination, the great messaging, the art style, and I think it's really worthwhile reading and watching narratives from different parts of the world, because everywhere has kind of like different story structures and focuses on like what the story is about and everything. I always appreciated that about like Miyazaki's stories. They're very different than like Disney movies, where those were like the two things I grew up with as a kid, was Disney cartoons and Studio Ghibli, and it was just like vastly different. But yeah, I'd go with Nausicaa.
Nice. Yes, and I
It's a good pick.
don't know what's going on, but all the comments, thank you for these. And I agree, it's good to be kicked out of the house. There's pros and cons. I was telling my wife, like, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't get booted out of the house every day and like go do something, you know, you get into something. Yeah, I mean, I got into some stuff I shouldn't have got into.
I was just gonna say, I got into so much trouble as a kid.
Oh yeah, I was telling my wife, like, we were feral, man. We were wild children. We shouldn't have been doing half the shit we were doing, but we had a good time, and you know, we only got in trouble sometimes. And I mean, I remember, yeah, it's a whole story that I'm writing. But we thought a house was haunted, so we were trying to unhaunt it, but that included breaking its windows and, you know, doing some stuff we shouldn't have done. And in the end, it was like, oh well, you let this idiot right here with an overactive imagination run things, and that's what you end up getting. So yeah, that's so. Oh, sorry, Timothy, tell us, what is your comic that's going to hook a young reader?
I can tell you, when I saw this question, I think this is one of the hardest questions, because we have to be aware of the changing tastes of the upcoming generations, right? And the truth is that they are very different than we were. And you know, I'm tempted to be funny and make some kind of hot take, but I don't think that's the right answer here. You know, I was a relatively literate kid. Like, I read books and stuff, and in school they had us read books, and you know, it's not really as much like that anymore. And I'm not complaining about that. It's just something we have to adjust to. So I'd say we're trying to hook them on comics, right? Is the question?
Yeah.
I guess I would try couple of years ago, there was a real nice illustrated version of The Hobbit, which was sort of like a watercolor painting, and it was sort of whimsical and had nice dialogue and not too thick of a read. Like my inner nerd says, hey, well, it should be like The Sandman or Watchmen or any of these, anything by Grant Morrison or any of these great works of literature that are so moving and artistic and well written. But to hook a young person, that's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not to be negative, but we know it won't work. They don't like that. So it's got to be approachable. It's got to be beautiful. And it's got to have memorable dialogue. That's what I picked for my 3. So I'm going to say the illustrated version of The Hobbit.
Nice.
That's my guess.
And
And then,
does that make sense,
Okay.
Sarah?
yeah, no, I think
That reminds me of how back when like Twilight first came out, like it's not a very well written book or anything, but it got a lot of people who didn't read
it
into
built
reading.
readers. Yeah.
Sarah,
Like
thanks
that.
for saying that. You're
Yeah.
so on the money there. I got a huge amount of respect for, how do I want to say this without sounding like I'm pandering? Current literature is largely driven by female readers. It's a good thing. I have a daughter. At the time, she was 15. And I'm telling you, Sarah, they used to do what they called a midnight release. And she would,
I remember those.
yeah. And she was so into it. And of course, it was my ex-wife now, but we were so interested in encouraging her to be a reader that we'd stay up till midnight and run down to the local place that was selling it and get her book at 10 after 12. And it's hard to believe that it was that popular. If you remember, Hunger Games was a little bit like that too. She was big into that. And I think Sarah's right in this case. I wouldn't describe it as this titanic literary talent, but pretty good, right? And it accomplished its job, which was, I don't know if there's a wrong way to get somebody to start reading. If they start, then it works. So I think Sarah's answer might be better than mine.
Yeah. All right. So, Sarah White, what would your choice be on this one?
Did you know that there is a Twilight graphic novel?
Oh,
Yeah.
how funny.
I have one of them. They did all of them, and I have one, and I kind of want to get the others.
Yeah.
Because I agree about the Twilight stuff. Is like it's not a masterpiece by any stretch, but it's actually really easy to get into, and it's really easy to lose yourself in the story. So I've reread it as recently as a couple months ago. I reread one of the books. But I think my pick is Galaxy the Prettiest Star. It's kind of a newer one. And it's just like, I feel like that one is empowering, particularly for teenage girls who maybe feel like they're out of place, or teenage anybody who feels like they're out of place. And it's just so pretty. I mean, and it's I don't know. I felt very strongly about that one. I got the book from a friend, and I read through it immediately, and then forgot about 90% of what it was about. But whenever somebody asks me what comic should their kid read, I'm like, get that one. Get Galaxy the Prettiest Star. That's great. It's so.
I should read it.
It's just even if you're gonna buy it, like even just buy it for how pretty it is. It's just so pretty, and then good story too. And it's a good strong story for a kid who maybe is finding it difficult to find a place in the world. And like if you were the weird kid in school, like it maybe make you feel a little less alone. And I'm not explaining myself very well here, but like I just trust me on this one. You should read that book.
No, it sounds great. I haven't heard of that one.
Not just 10-year-olds.
No, I've never heard of that one, and it's one now I got to go seek out. And
that's on my
it's
list.
funny because the conversation we're having is one that I have to have with parents, because I've been teaching for 25 years now, and I've seen the rise of kids loving Goosebumps, then kids loving the Twilight and things like that, and the parents will say like, I want my kid to read something good. I'm like, don't worry about them reading something good. The fact that they're eagerly reading, the Scholastic magazine, we send those home to the kids, and they're like, oh, there's a new Goosebumps, or there's a new Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or a new Captain Underpants. They are not high art. They're pretty low end literature, but the fact that the kids are just dying. They're pre-ordering it through Scholastic so they can have that book the day it comes out. That's something the parents should be excited about, because it's going to eventually convert into them reading bigger and more important works. I grew up just completely hooked on the choose your own adventure books. When Scholastic came out, I'm like, oh, there's another one. I need to get this, and I need to read every possible variation so I can see every pathway that character can take. And I would spend, hours and hours with that book to find out every way you could go. And yeah, that's not high art. It's, there's probably some committee cranking them out behind the scenes, but it got me hooked. And eventually I went to bigger and better things. I went and became an English lit major because that beginning love of reading. And I tell the parents, there's no such thing as a bad book for your kid to get hooked on. So for me, my pick, I thought about the way the kids think, and the kids just love scary stuff. So I'm going to go grab any random issue of Tales from the Crypt, the old EC ones, and I'm going to hand that to a 10-year-old, because these kids already love Goosebumps, and they love the scary stuff that's kind of just dancing on the edge of being a little bit inappropriate for them. And that's, what a 10-year-old wants. It's like, ooh, it's got a little edge. It's got, these little moral stories, and, quick, there's a decapitated head. They're going to like that too. So I think you hand them that, and that's going to get the kid hooked, because that's what 10-year-olds love. They love that kind of scary stuff. That's why I have to buy new sets of Goosebump books every year for my class, because they read them till the spine falls apart. And I call that a victory. So it's something that, and then I know the Raina Telgemeier stuff, the Sisters and Smile, those books, the 10-year-olds also, I have to buy a new set of those ones every year, because they read them till they're falling apart. So that's my girls. The girls are hooked on that. And she wrote a few Babysitters Club graphic novel ones as well. So I look at, okay, if I'm handing the boys one, here's a copy of Tales from the Crypt. And if I'm handing the girls one, choose your Raina Telgemeier book, and they're going to get completely hooked on that. And I see that passion where it's like, oh, you finished Guts, it's my turn now. And I have to have a list of like, all right, you can only keep the Telgemeier books for 1 week, and then you got to pass it to the next person who wants it. So the fact that they're that enthusiastic and that excited about reading it, parents need to celebrate that and not scoff at it and like, well, they should be reading, it's Shakespeare. It's like, no, they're fifth graders. Let them enjoy what they enjoy, and eventually it'll turn into something else.
Yeah, I was reading like Goosebumps, Animorphs, like younger kid Captain Underpants, all that stuff, and then it leads into, by middle school, reading Sense and Sensibility and like Dickens. It's like because you just love reading, so you're just digesting everything.
Yeah,
you don't really there's no difference. Like, as long as you're reading and it's entertaining, that's what you care about.
And it develops that passion. And that's what's important.
Gateway drug.
It really is. The kids, and that's
love Goosebumps.
And Goosebumps have been, all 25 years that I've been teaching, those have been the books the kids love the most. Because graphic novels, when I first started teaching, there weren't a lot of great graphic novels for kids. That's something that's kind of evolved through the years. When I was going, it was the comic shop, and you'd think of Sandman and that, the higher end stuff, and then you had your superhero stuff, but there wasn't stuff like what the authors are writing now that can show kids that their children are going to relate to, dealing with real world issues, not let's save the world. It's like, no, let's put on this play and things like that. And my youngest daughter, she blasted through all the Raina Telgemeier books over and over and over again. And yeah, I mean, she finally got to meet her at Comic-Con, and she was just like, oh my gosh, I've read your books so many times that literally they fell apart. So, it's one of those things where that started her passion. And now we go to the library. She's like, Dad, how many books can I get at one time? And she's getting 8 young adult books, and she's just constantly wanting to read. And that's, from that passion that started by reading those little comic books that, parents would scoff at. So yeah, it's great
you
stuff.
made a great point too, or maybe it was Sarah that said it about, I think so, I've heard somebody say Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I've done a few conventions myself, and, occasionally you stumble across famous people or these Titanic creators that we love so much. And who was I'll just cut right to the chase. I'm in the elevator and I meet this guy. He's Jeff Kinney, I believe his name is.
Mhm.
I didn't know who he was. He's the author of Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Oh yeah.
And out of all the celebrities, and by the way, there was a couple of hobbits there was some wrestlers, but out of everybody, he had by far the largest security contingent. He had an agent there doing the speaking for him and some kind of Hollywood rep. He looked like a rock star coming through. It was like an entourage of like 6 to 8 people at all times. And I kind of went, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, really? Like I knew it was big, but I guess the takeaway here is that kids have a way of deciding for themselves what they like. So we have to be careful not to coach them.
Oh yeah. And I have a huge library in my classroom, and I just put out books that hopefully are high interest. I have all the Wimpy Kid books. I have all the Captain Underpants. I have a huge chunk of Goosebumps. And then, Animorphs. I have some of those. And the kids, they're just constantly wanting to grab a book and read it. And I always read aloud to them every day. I do about 15 minutes after they get in from one of their recesses, and they're just hooked. I'll read a first book in a series and they're like, oh, is there another one? We want to read the next one. Because I just read them for Halloween. I read them Bunnicula, and they're like, oh, that was so good. I'm like, guess what? Come over here. I take them to the library. I'm like, look at all these sequels to Bunnicula. So now they're battling for those. So it's just build the passion, and it'll turn into something great later on. So great conversation again. This is
good picks.
This is amazing,
everyone.
So best movie soundtrack. Now we like I said, it's random topic. So I always like to throw one music related topic into this. So we've talked about on this show, we've talked about the best horror movie soundtrack. We did that one last week. We've talked about the best comic book movie soundtrack. Now we're talking about just the best movie soundtrack in general. And I said it can be an orchestral one, something that was composed, or it can be one of the mixtape styles where you just have this compilation of great songs put together into a movie. So, Sarah L., go ahead and tell us, what is your pick for the best movie soundtrack?
I cheated. I don't have one pick. I couldn't pick one.
That's okay.
This is hard. This is hard.
I love
It
it.
is.
There's no rules here. You can pick as many.
I was just like, all right, orchestral. I was just like, Gladiator, Jurassic Park, more recently Fury Road. Like I friggin' love that one. It gets me amped. Mixtape, any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yep.
And I really liked Ready Player One's soundtrack. I'm just like, I can't. There are too many good. It's one of my favorite things in movies. I can't.
Okay. No, that's good. And there's no, I mean, and the thing is, I always have to, when I'm doing this, because I always go last, so I always have to pick 3 or 4 different ones, and all of them are valid picks. I'm like, all right, all 4 of these are winners, but I just don't like to double up on somebody's. But yeah, any of the ones you said are great picks. So Timothy, what's your pick going to be?
I hesitate because I'm almost going to piggyback on Sarah a little bit. So I'm going to quick think of another one because I almost mentioned Jurassic Park. But Ed mentioned it a great way. The thing about music, and I'm a musician and songwriter, and maybe we'll talk about that before I go, but there is no wrong answer for somebody that likes music, and different things move different people's hearts, and that's fine. And that's why there's country and there's hip hop and there's metal and you couldn't even really compile a list, right? But I think Sarah was onto something with the works of John Williams. And I know the people that follow me are going to hear me say something I say all the time, which is, does it pass the 7-note test? And I won't do it here because I put this on YouTube. And even if I hum them, it will be taken down, because if you can hum enough that it's recognizable, you've violated the terms, which is something that annoys me. But we'll save that topic for another day. But the John Williams test, or what I call the 7-note test, if you hear 5 notes, you can recognize the Star Wars theme. If you hear 5 notes, it's really 7. I call it 7-note test. Jurassic Park, Superman, Indiana Jones. The best example of this, I think, is John Williams. And I think the thing that makes, again, one man's opinion, we'll hear from everybody. The thing that makes music accessible is if it's easily understandable by civilians. Like you don't have to be you don't need a ton of complicated parts to make a memorable and moving score. And I think almost the easier it is, the better and the more accessible it is. And I think that, similar with writing, I think music should be within the grasp of everyone. And I often say in my column, if anybody ever wants to take a crack at writing a song, or any of us musicians also in this group, by any chance, you guys playing the
Just
instruments?
enjoy listening.
No.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say I play it. Like I mean, I can play the guitar and ukulele, and I can play a lot of the string instruments actually. But
All right.
I learn a few notes, I get bored, I move on. You know.
I got great
sing.
news.
I also sing.
I love to say to people, if you can hum, you can write a song, and you can turn it over to what I call a producer or an engineer, and you can make something that will make people go, oh, that's so good. You won't believe how good it comes out. And I'll use as the example, there's many great examples. You guys know who Ozzy Osbourne is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I realize that's a little bit of a metal example and not everybody loves him. Would you be surprised if I told you that he does not read music, and he does not write music, and he does not play an instrument? And he's had 45 years worth of #1 albums. And what he does with this, he finds what they call a guitar hero. He finds like the best guitar player he can find. And he sits down in a room and he goes, I got this idea. And it goes, and he hums it to the guy, and they jam it together. And then they turn it over to Mutt Lange or, any of the, Ted Templeman, these giants of recording. And they come out with these songs that are #1 songs. And the illustration here is that it's not some mystical talent that is far away from anybody's reach. You literally don't need to play an instrument or write songs or read music, and you can become one of the #1 musicians on the planet. So I would just like to throw that out there. If anybody ever wants to try and write a song, it's something we do over here. All you got to be able to do is to call me and hum over the phone, and we will make a song. It's a service we provide, by the way, for people who write Kickstarter themes. And depending on the complexity, there is a charge for that. But I do it anyway because it helps my credibility as a songwriter. Obviously, I do it for a self-serving reason. But if you like music, I love to help people make songs. It's a weird compulsion that I have. So if you ever want to. And the takeaway there before I wrap it up is music should be for everybody to enjoy. In my case, I'm going to pick the work of John Williams.
Nice. All right. So Sarah White, what is your pick for this one?
Interstellar.
Okay.
Sarah #1 took my idea of Guardians of the Galaxy. Has a great classic soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
But as far as the orchestral stuff goes, like it's Interstellar. And I mean,
that's a great one.
I love about a lot of those songs is that I couldn't quite figure out, like, I'm not a great musician by any stretch. I barely learned anything about, what is music or anything like that. But it took me a while. Like you listen to the song and it sounds amazing and it fits perfectly with the movie itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't necessarily figure out the timing of it because I'm like tapping my fingers to it, going like, what is the timing on this thing? But it doesn't, like, sometimes when you get that in a song where they mix up the times on there, like, it sounds weird and it sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or it's jarring, the transition is jarring, but not with those songs. Like, I have no idea how the counting works on any of those songs, or at least most of those songs, but yet they work beautifully. You don't even notice. And it's just, I'm so impressed by that. And that's Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer. Great pick.
Okay.
Great
Who
pick.
is also amazing. Like, he did Lion King stuff and Dune and like he did
he's got some great stuff.
He's a heavy hitter.
Yeah, for mine I picked two. I did one orchestral and one mixtape. So my orchestral one is The Fountain. So I don't know if you've heard the soundtrack for The Fountain, but it's done by the Kronos Quartet, and then they bring in the band Mogwai that does some of the guitar work to it, and it's just this big sweeping epic soundtrack. And it's one of when I'm writing, it's one of the main ones that I'll play, just because it has it's kind of you building this action, and it's just such a beautiful soundtrack. I remember that Mondo, the company that does posters and vinyl, they were releasing a copy of it for Comic-Con. I'm like, I will camp out overnight to make sure I get that copy on vinyl of that particular soundtrack. And I did, and I have it. It's one that I play all the time. So that would be my orchestral one. And then my mixtape one would go back, and that would be the single soundtrack, because that one, for a 90s Gen Xer, that was kind of like the pinnacle of great music for that one. It had so many great artists that I loved. It had Smashing Pumpkins, it had Pearl Jam, it had Mother Love Bone, it had Soundgarden, and just everything about that soundtrack I love. I still play it. As another one is Mondo did a vinyl release, and I'm like, okay, I have to have that. And then they did a second one with some of the songs that didn't make the main one, and I had to get that one too. So it's one of those ones, both of those ones I revisit all the time. And there's so many amazing ones. John Williams was obviously on my list. You could pick any of the John Williams one, and it's a winner. And then Hans Zimmerman has some incredible stuff too. So you just can't go wrong for it. And then it's Score for the Dragon Prince. I haven't seen that TV show.
That's a pretty good
yeah,
score.
Yeah. Okay, and that has to be Katie. There's no way, Katie. I know you sold yourself out there. I can't say your name, but I know it's you.
Yeah, it's the mystery Facebook user thing because
You got to link your. We'll do this tomorrow. You got to link your Facebook to your stream.
Oh, I do.
I'll help you.
Because my Facebook got hacked.
Mhm.
I have to rechange my settings because my Facebook got hacked and taken over, and now there's extra firewalls that they put in because I was taken over in this. What, I forget her name now, but yeah, it was.
I remember.
It was crazy, and they were and the person took it over and started to run ads on my Finish Line Comics one for jegging. So apparently, I became a jegging seller.
That's how I knew that it was hacked. I was like, Ed's trying to sell me jeggings.
Yeah, they must be really good somehow.
I did buy a pair.
Oh, good. I hope you left me 5 stars. Okay, so now we have done all of our topics. It's time to talk about the campaigns. We have one active right now, and I will pull that up in just a moment. And Sarah, you can tell us all about it.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a campaign going for glitch number 3. There's the camera.
Yes.
Like I said in the beginning, it's a post-apocalyptic solar punk adventure. It's set a few centuries after a mysterious event wiped out nearly all life on the planet, and we follow teenage scavenger Ari and her pet desert kit fox Zephyr as they scavenge in the wasteland, run afoul of some of the baddies like the Knight Rider and the Cactus Clan, and discover a piece of technology from the highly advanced old world that has some kind of mysterious connection to what ended the world and possibly what could fix it. So we like to blend the optimism of solar punk with the grit of post-apocalyptic genre to give a more colorful, bright, hopeful view of end of the world scenarios.
Very
cool.
Yeah.
Cool, Sarah.
Yeah, it's I have 1 and 2. I bought them both at the con. So this one I'm backing. You can see where it says your selection right over there. So I have it, and they have amazing prices for their physical books. $10 gets you the physical copy of the book. And if you back a lot of Kickstarters, you know that some people charge pretty significantly higher prices for a physical copy of the book. So that is an amazing price. And yeah.
And that has US shipping included.
Yeah. I mean, that is
So
unbelievably good price.
Wow.
Deal.
You can't do better than that. Trust me. I can't give you better than that when I launch my Kickstarter later this year. So it is an amazing price, and you can get caught up. She has a way to get you the other issues of the series. I jumped in on day 1, and I just saw that you guys got the Project We Love status. So that is amazing. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, we didn't get it for number 2, so I was like, "Ooh, yay, it's back!" It's
That's
exciting.
Do you have a catch-up tier on here?
Yes,
Awesome.
we have both
I'll
a
get that
digital
one.
and a physical catch-up tier.
Cool.
So $6 will get you all the PDFs because we offer number 1 for free anyway. So it's like you're basically just paying for 2 PDFs. And I think it's like 20 for the.
There's the physical.
25
That's
for.
awesome.
25 for the catch-up tier, and that includes the shipping for the US too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so
Mhm.
that
Cool.
is great price. Trust me. Like I said, I can't even match it when I'm going to launch myself. So definitely jump in on this one. It's a fun series. And
We're
yeah,
bringing Sand Pirates in with this issue, which I'm really
Cool.
excited for. So
good
there's a
stuff.
lot of Treasure Planet influence and stuff
Oh,
in there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm gonna get it. I
Yes.
gotta. I hate that I have to always buy digital right now. Like, you know, space and money constraints. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want the physical copies, but I am like, where am I gonna put them?
I know
Oh,
I've run out of shelf space. It's
Long
bad.
boxes in the garage is the answer, and the countless ones. And once in a while, I go and discover like, oh wow, I have a first appearance that now is really hot because some Marvel trailer
Oh.
dropped and everybody wants it. So you just
Nice.
at random, you'll find out you have that. I dig through them probably about once a year, but yeah, the never-ending sea of long boxes in the garage. Again, talking about earlier. You want to collect physical media, where are you going to store it?
Yeah, but to have a garage. Right now, I live in an apartment.
So
Garage.
I guess with a garage, a 3-car garage that houses no cars. So, you know, it's
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
the plight of the collector right there.
That's what I need. is a 3-car garage, and I mean, like that would be fine too, because we only have the 2 cars, so that whole space for just books.
Yeah, and I'm going to get the
Perfect.
link to that into the chat so people can find it.
Hey, tell you what, Ed, I can do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Wait,
And then we have another one. This is a pre-launch one that Sarah number 2 is going to tell us all about.
Wait, hold on. I think you have mine up there. You want to switch to, Sarah?
Yeah, let me go. I gotta
There you go.
get this one off. Yeah, so I am still a work in progress when it comes to
You're doing great, man. It's a
Darian.
lot to keep
It's
track of.
okay.
You're doing great. That's just a
Okay.
quick comment.
is-
That's Sarah's book there in the comments. If anybody's viewing live, that's for Glitch. That's live on Kickstarter right now. You can hit that link and check it out.
and now
Call to action. Back it right
Yes.
now.
All right. And this one back it soon. Power Broker 1
Yeah.
through 5.
click the
Also-
notify button. That's what you gotta do.
How about
Um,
I do that? There.
This is
done.
ooh, sweet. You might be the first. I don't even know. Like they don't show you how many people.
You
do
don't see it till
you
there's
get
10.
or something.
Yeah.
And this is this is not my book. I am just helping the creator. Todd Vicino is the creator of Power Broker, and I'm just helping him set up his Kickstarter. So, but I was like, well, if I'm gonna be here, I might as well help him plug it a
Yeah,
little bit here. And this
definitely.
is basically what if you could buy superpowers?
Mm.
And yeah, it's like it's I'm liking the idea of giving away the first book for free, so I'm gonna have to ask him if he's willing to do that, because this is beautiful art by John Kutzer, and just like this particular issue is, if you're new to the Power Broker franchise, I guess, is a great one to jump in on, because it is like action from start to finish on this one. And it's crazy. There's like it's called Power Broker. So it's meant to be that I'm doing a great job of selling this, aren't I? So obviously they developed the ability to get superpowers, to give anyone superpowers, and obviously it went out of control immediately. So you know, a governing body was formed, and they called themselves the Power Brokers. And then there's also the evil corporation that's run that gives the powers out to people, and it's if you can pay for it, and obviously the price isn't just money. And yeah, this one is a really great issue, like I said, to get in on, because it's full of action. There's going to be tiers to catch up if you don't have any of them, and you'll be able to add on any of the books if you want, in both either physical or digital, or both. You
Nice.
can get if you have like 1 and 3 or whatever, you know, like you can just get 2. It's fine.
Okay. Cool.
So-
yeah. Looks great.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy book. It's it's a great premise, and it's a pretty fun and wild ride.
Yeah, I can
And
see
like I
you got like that gore right in the beginning, so you gotta love that. Like
Yeah.
in this, you got this dude getting
Immediate.
getting something through his head. So I
Yeah,
like
it's a
that because it
It's a propeller. I'm honestly
propeller.
not sure. I
Okay,
think
yeah, I'm not
it's
sure, but I'm in
I'd
for
say-
that. I love it. Yeah, and I if you've read any of my titles, I don't spare the blood. It's always, blood oozing everywhere, decapitated heads. One of the decapitated heads is a main character, so I'm all about that. So, all right. So, Timothy, tell us what you'd like to promote. I know it's not a campaign, but what do you have for us?
That's the latest track there on our YouTube channel. It is a cryptid-based orchestral theme that devolves into a metal soundtrack with dual guitars called The Mystery of the Mothman. This is the follow-up from the earlier track, The Call of the Cryptid. As long as possible, I'm going to try and stick to alliterative names. But if you like the sound of John Williams, there's a chance you might like it. This one passes the 7-note test. Or also if you like dual guitar harmonies. Just a quick shout out to the musicians. I do things a little differently now. That's Rod Gels, Larry Bugs Garland, and James Clappell. Thank you guys for your talent and your diligence to your craft. In this case, I was the songwriter, and what I do, I try to gather people toward me that are better than me at things. Not too different than my comics. You try and gather talented people around you, and good things start to happen. And this has been our most popular one, and it has what I consider to be a relatively high production quality. And the reason why I mention it, it's one of the services we provide. And actually, maybe Sarah might remember this because we were in a book together. I also wrote the theme song for Russell Nolte's Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. So if you are a creator and you're looking for a songwriter to represent your brand, what we do is, it's not a thing where you say, I want a song, and I say, here's your song. We get together and you say, well, it's gothic and it's got adventurous female character. We start to provide elements that will represent your brand. And of course, music, like all things, has many flavors. And we just kind of tweak it until it starts to sound like what your dream is. And we've had a decent amount of success. This is going back to the one that applies to us earlier. What Russell said to me was, and this was one of the craziest instructions ever. He's a little bit of a deeply creative person, I would say. And he said something like, well, I want it to be humorous and scary and weird. And I want it to be like Monster Mash, but have flavoring like a ska song. And first of all, what an odd instruction. But we sat right down and we wrote the song. And when we sent the first draft past him, he was out shopping and he had to walk outside and sit down. He was laughing so hard. And it was one of the better success stories. 'Cause, mine tend to be deep and brooding sci-fi. I want to sound epic. It's post-apocalyptic, right? This is for our other title. I didn't promote it. It's a cryptid-based visual adventure. But in most cases, each person's project is a little different. Sometimes they're very tender. Sometimes they're romantic. Sometimes they're we have one country one. There's all types. I think that once again with music, there's no wrong answer. But I think that in this case, that's in my YouTube channel. If you'd like to check it out, that'd be great. Please like and subscribe for those so inclined. But the idea is you can get a clear idea of the type of production value that we are striving for, not only in the books, but in the music. And the deal is the same as always. If you don't think it's the best one in the galaxy, call me up. I'll give you your money back. I'm not doing this for the money yet. I think I speak for all of us in this room. As comic book creators, we're already incredibly wealthy. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I admire you all so much and your dedication to the craft. And the truth is, we do these things for ourselves, that our voices might be heard in a completely different and changing world. And the truth is, there are many types of voices. So we have to try and look out for each other somehow. What the answer is, I don't know. But we have to try. So this is my little contribution through music, and to a greater extent writing. But if somebody'd like to follow my writing, that'd be great. But the idea is that let me tie this into the closing, Ed, because after this I got to go to the convention.
Okay.
I think Edward Davis is great at this, and I'd like to thank him. And this is the reason why. A lot of us creators, perhaps not the great people that I've met today, but we tend to fall into a trap. And what we do, we say, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And we don't provide any point of engagement for our viewers and our readers. And something I think Ed has done very well is to provide a platform that we can have interesting conversations from different types of voices. And, people get to know us. And maybe they like us, maybe they don't. But the truth is, this is our real voice. This is who we are. And the idea is that they notice us and we are branded. And they might say, hey, Sarah seems pretty cool. I'd like to, like in my case, maybe D&D was the first thing I latched on. Hey, I'd like to follow her probably, right? And I didn't know too much about the other types of writing yet. But the idea is you can provide a reference point for a reader or a viewer to begin to follow you. As for me, when I watch TV and the commercials come on, I skip them. Maybe everybody else is different than me, but I don't like commercials. So I think that as creators, we have to do better. We have to make a deposit before we make a withdrawal. And the reason for my small musical contributions, I think we have 14 songs or something, that's my deposit. You can listen to all of them for free. You can read my Substack for free. You can watch the Creative Cranium for free. By the way, Sarah, I have a creative podcast too. You're welcome to come on. All these things are an effort to make a deposit into our community that when the time comes, I'm going to ask for a withdrawal. My new book's on sale. I'm that guy or that girl that you know from XYZ. Come take a look at it. So in closing, I'd like to thank the guest today. It's nice to meet you, Sarah number 1 and Sarah number 2, who it took me a second to realize, but we did know each other from before. It's nice to see you again. And thank you, Ed Davis, for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for coming on. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We'll be talking tomorrow. We got something up our sleeve. We're not ready to say anything just yet, but you're doing a terrific job, and I appreciate what you do for the community.
All right. Thank you so much.
If anybody's in the York, PA, what's that again?
I was like, so nice meeting you. It was so great, like listening to you speak. It was fantastic.
Listen, I hope that you'll consider coming on the show. When does that's something that I have a thing coming up about the top 11 Christmas songs. If you want to talk about that, if you like Christmas songs. Yeah,
that's fun.
Shoot me I'm sorry, I got to run right now. I'm going to be interviewing creator Chris Brown over at this. It's called Save the Throw. It's I think it's a Magic the Gathering based convention, and they invited a comic creator. So I'm going to do a little interview with him, and you'll see that later today on YouTube. But I'd love to talk to anybody in this group if they'd like to come on the Creative Cranium. So
that'd be awesome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's always a pleasure.
Hey, good luck.
All right, so
now I get the whole bottom to myself.
You own the bottom now.
Sarah, take over.
Sarah has a row to herself. All right, so now what we're gonna do is just wrap things up. Tell us where you can be found, where we can find you and follow you. So Sarah L., tell us, where can we find you? Where can we find your book? We know we have Glitch, so tell us where you're found.
So easiest way to find us is www.wastelandcomics.com. That's our hub, just because social handles can be a pain to try and get them all to match, especially when your name is as long as Wasteland Comics. Didn't fit on Twitter. And so wastelandcomics.com has links to all of our socials and like our mailing list, and it has a link to our Kickstarter. So that's wastelandcomics.com. I'm not super prevalent on social media personally. I do have a Twitter that I'm barely ever on, at SR Landauer. So if you want to follow me for the rare times that I post, that's the best way.
Nice.
All right, Sarah.
I'm kind of in a rebuilding process right now, but you can find my my Instagram or my YouTube channel is they're both Ordinary Human Person. And once I get things back up and rolling, I'll have a more permanent address. But for now, you can find me on those two places, and I'll if you have anything fun to tell me, that's where I'll be.
Cool. And for me, you can find everything under Finish Line Comics. Still working hard to build the YouTube. So if you can, Finish Line Comics YouTube, I would really appreciate if you could like the videos that are there, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build something bigger and better with these live streams. And I do also 1-minute comic reviews. So if you have a book you'd like to have reviewed for one of our little book breaks, I call them, please send me a digital copy. I'd love to review some books. We've kind of have a hiatus going on that right now because my daughter is my video editor and she's now like the head of production for the play at her school. So once she's done with that, then she can come back and make little 1-minute videos with me again. So if you want a book reviewed, let me know. Please like, please subscribe. Finish Line Comics, all the social media. If you put that in, you'll find us. And Want to thank the Sarah Invasion today. Thank you both for coming on. It was great discussions today. I really appreciate having you here.
Yeah,
it
this
was
was
really
fun.
fun. Yeah, really fun.
All right. Well, we will be back next week with new guests, new topics, keeping things fresh. I think next week we have no live campaign. So we're just going to be here to talk comics, talk non-comics, talk all kinds of random things. So see you guys next week, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and have a great rest of the weekend.